Here we go. Okay. So I'm not even sure how to intro this. Is it the Louie Be Free radio show, Brain Food from the Heartland? But I'm going to be interviewed by Tom Angleberger. Oof. Yeah, this
Great.
is interesting.
I'm going to take over the show for a little bit.
You are.
And I'm going to ask all the questions that I wanted to have answered. And I bet a lot of your listeners would like to know the answers to also.
I'm nervous. I have to tell you, in all these my radio days.
Well, I'm nervous. I'm interviewing the master interviewer. You're like the best interviewer out there. And I've got to, it's like playing chess against a grandmaster.
My skills have waned. Whatever skills I had have waned. But Tom, first we got to talk a little bit about you. I'm just in awe of you. You are just one of the most wonderful human beings I've ever encountered. I mean that. Kind, compassionate, extremely talented, etc. A little bit. Come on. Don't be shy.
No, I'm sure that was more than enough.
No, it's not.
But Louie, you've been nice enough to have me on your show to promote some of my books. But before I wrote books, I wrote for the newspaper. And so I've interviewed a lot of people over my time. And I thought, I would really like to interview Louie. The last time I was on, you kept asking me questions, and I kept trying to get in questions for you, and you didn't give me a chance. So I thought, I really want to ask him some questions. So I'm glad we have this chance. I'm going to try to interview you the way I would interview you if I was going to be writing a newspaper article about you. And hopefully the listeners will find out the stuff they've always wanted to know, the story behind the ears.
The rabbit ears.
The big rabbit ears. No, the story behind the voice that they hear on their radio. I want to try to tap in and find out the person behind the voice on the radio.
Just a little bit more about you, because we met through a radio tour.
We did. And the funny thing was, I had just had a terrible experience with somebody interviewing me on another station. It was just horrible. And then I come on with you, and I'm like, this is fun. This is great. And that's what I found out about. Even though I used to live in Ohio, I never picked up the Louie Be Free show over in Kent. And so I didn't find out about you until I did that interview with you. And then I was like, wow, this guy's awesome. Right. And I've listened to you interview other people too, and you're a great interviewer. And that's what makes me curious.
Thank you. Sorry about the phone going. See how professional I am. I didn't turn my ringer off on my phone. Oh boy. But the success of your books, just a little bit more, if you would. I mean,
you're so funny. You're trying to delay me asking you questions.
Actually, I mean, I've got the list of all the books, the New York Times bestsellers, USA Today bestsellers.
Right. Well, I'll sum it up real quick, and then I'm going to start asking you questions.
Okay.
So yes, I've written over 30 books for kids. A lot of them are about Star Wars. Some of them are about bathroom humor. They're disgusting, and you should avoid them at all costs. No. And I'm actually going to have a book coming out about dinosaurs coming up. And when you open that up, you're going to see it's dedicated to Louie, because Louie's an awesome guy, full of positive energy. I've been so excited to dedicate a book to him, but the problem was I didn't have a book in the works. So I had to get to work, write a book, find somebody to publish it, and only then was I able to finally tell Louie that I'm dedicating my next book to him.
I'm just, that is just so sweet. That's so
all right. Well, now I'm gonna stop being sweet, and I'm gonna start asking questions.
Okay.
So Louie, I've
never done this before.
I know, but don't worry. I interview people all the time that have never been interviewed before. And you're comfortable on the radio, so you should have no problem.
Okay.
So what I want to do is what amazes me is you're just there. Some people, your listeners may not even be aware that not every town has a Louie Be Free. In fact, no other town has a Louie Be Free. In a lot of places, if you turn on the radio, you're just hearing something that's pretty much a computer. And sometimes a human voice will show up, but it's not real. Louie B is real. What I want to find out is how did we have this miracle? The miracle of Louie, how did it happen? So I want to take you way back.
Okay.
I want to find out when you were little, when you were a kid,
what
was your first experience with the radio? What was your first time that you remember like listening to the radio?
I remember, I remember my father listening to jazz on the radio. I remember that my personal experience, if I can jump ahead just a little bit, Tom Angleberger, if you don't mind. When I used to like those, I had a shortwave radio that I loved. And I also was able to get signals. I used to love News Radio 880 out of New York City. It was news. It was news, and I could pick that up miraculously sometimes at night. And oh boy, I'm going to bust myself on this, but here goes. At this point, right, as it is said about me, my greatest asset is also my greatest liability. There's no filter between my brain and my mouth. And I am told when I say that, I should think twice about what I'm about to say, but that never works. I remember one night, I can say this now because both of my parents are long deceased. I was tripping. I came home. I can't remember if it was mushrooms or acid. And I'm
Wait a minute, Louie. I asked you to go back to when you were a kid.
Well, I was a teenager. I maybe I shouldn't tell this story.
Oh, no, I want to hear it. I got to hear it now.
Okay,
I got to hear it now.
And I'm listening to tuning in, and I really loved AM from different areas. And there was I'm in my bed trying to settle because I didn't want to raise the ire of my father. And I'm listening, and it was, I think, WLS out of Chicago. I've got to look it up. But I'm hearing WLSD, of course, because I'm tripping. And I'm freaking out a little bit. There was no internet, of course, to look up. No, and I had to stay calm and quiet. That is another early experience listening to radio. Wow, that one came back to me. But it was radio. Again, I'm in my 70th year, so that's what it was. There was AM and FM radio, and
oh man, that's wild, Louie. That was not the story I was expecting. I really enjoyed it. Do you remember on the shortwave? Do you remember when you would tune it and you would get the number stations, and it was just people reading numbers? Do you remember that?
I don't.
They were like coded transmissions. You were like tuning in and hearing codes from spies or something. But of course, all you could hear with the numbers, you couldn't do it. But I also had a shortwave and tuned in the AM stations like that. Do you remember? Do you remember what your radio was like? I mean, what kind of a setup did you have?
Oh, I didn't have anything. It wasn't anything fancy. It was just I don't remember, honestly. It was
okay.
I remember as I got older, I had a Grundig. I didn't have anything fancy. Never had a fancy shortwave or any fancy, but I loved it. I loved listening.
Well, I guess what makes me curious next is at what point did you start to think that you might work for a radio station?
Well, that's an interesting story because how I got into radio, it was a fluke, actually. Trying to remember exactly what was going on with me at the time, but I had a business idea that I decided, I can't remember at all what it was, and I wanted to pitch it to a guy that owned a local radio station. And I remember I made an appointment. I went in to see him, and listeners aren't going to be able to see, but I'm telling him, and he's kind of slouching back in his chair and his head's kind of going to the side, which I knew he was really not interested. And I said to him respectfully, very respectfully, I said, listen, if you've got no interest in this, I appreciate you giving me the time. It's cool, but I don't want to take up your time if you're not. And I'll never forget, he said, I'm not interested in all in what you're pitching, whatever the word was he used. He said, did you ever think of being a talk show host? And I thought all the different things I'd done in my life. I thought, hey, there's one that I never thought of. I'll do that. A week or two later, I was doing the worst. I just had no training, just awful. I thought it was awful. Just trying to do it. And that's how it started. It was very.
Now, how old were
this
you?
was probably 20, almost 25 years ago, 24, 25 years ago. So I was in my 40s.
Oh, okay. Well, in that case, before we go further with radio, I think we better find out what happened between your teenage LSD trips and your trip to the radio station. That's got to be about a 20-year gap in there we need to fill in.
Yeah, various things. I left the community, hitchhiked down, lived in Atlanta, Georgia for a while. I needed transportation, so I got a job driving a cab so I could have a car.
In Atlanta? You were driving a cab in Atlanta?
Yeah, I wanted to have a car, and I didn't have money to buy a car. So I thought, I'll drive cab, and then I can make some money and have a car to drive around. One of the interesting experiences with that, and keep me on track, please, because as I don't know if I need to do a disclaimer about what's going on with my brain or not, but maybe we'll get to that or not. I lived back then in Atlanta, and I know it's obviously changed a lot in almost 50 years. If you Yankees, I hope I'm using the proper terms, gay, interracial couples, kind of in an area, because there was other areas of Atlanta that did not want certain people living there. So it was a great community. I mean, it was a really, really wonderful community of very eclectic community, very interesting people. So I had a neighbor. We can edit this out if you prefer.
We're not this is good stuff. I want to
find out. I had a neighbor who was a guy that was always saying he was pregnant. And people, again, there were some very interesting people. And my cab's out front. I'm sleeping. I bang on the door. Louie. So you got to take me to the hospital. I'm losing the baby.
Oh my God.
And again, I got up and I said, I tried to calm him down a little bit, and he was adamant, please take me to the hospital. Well, we went to one hospital, and they wouldn't see him. Went to I think it was Grady then, and I got him in, and I told him I wait, and I'm waiting. Somebody came out in the waiting room and asked who brought him in. And me, and they asked me to come back to an office and talking with them. And they said, so why did you bring him in? I said, well, he said he was losing the baby. So, well, I said, I do understand. I said, I'm his neighbor. I said, you help him. Please help him. But it was just a very unusual, sorry, I went off so far on that. I'll never forget him being refused at a hospital. I mean, there was obviously he had some issues. I mean, he was crying about losing baby. And so I was in Atlanta, right across from Piedmont Park. God, I can remember now. And came back to town. And I played in the band for a while.
What kind of band?
It was more of a, what would they call it now? Rhythm, blues, rock and soul band. I'm the worst
What instrument were
musician.
you playing?
Guitar. I am undoubtedly the worst musician. I musician doesn't, I can't even call guitar picker, not even player. I'm the worst. Seriously, I'm the worst. I'm the worst. And admittedly, but it was okay for them at that time. It was just a very, very interesting in Atlanta. That came back and went went to college, went to university, and probably had more majors than anybody. Everything
That does not surprise me at all.
seriously, everything that was like, oh well, yeah, I want to do that. Ethnomusicology, I'll do that. Oh, I always wanted to play saxophone. I'm going to be a music major, and for I don't know. I was a philosophy major actually for a long time, and had a little some. My father kind of freaked out because I was saying, "What are you going to do?" I said, Dad, how do you know this table is really even here? And my hair was, and he grabbed me by my hair, and he didn't hit my head on the table, but he grabbed it and he said, "I can show you how you know the table's really here." He was, listen, I loved my dad. I miss my dad, but he had his own style, if you will. Ended up being a criminal justice. I graduated with a degree in criminal justice. In law enforcement. No, I'm serious. In law enforcement administration. Yeah. I never worked in the field. And that's and I was going to get a master's in history that I didn't finish. I was really intrigued at the time by some of the history stuff. So
wow. And now what school was this at?
Youngstown State University.
Oh, okay. Okay. So you are out of college. You have a degree in
criminal justice, law enforcement administration.
Justice.
Yeah.
So what do you start doing?
I don't know, selling weed. I don't. Well, I had this idea that it used to be.
Is that what they taught you in the classes?
No. But they, it was. Oh God, am I saying this? Yeah, I guess I am. I'm in it now, and in the twilight of my years, I guess. Oh well. Everybody was selling lids or ounces for $15. And I had this idea, what if we sold 2 for $25? And business was brisk. I've got to tell you, business was very, very brisk. I'm trying to remember. Oh God, I remember 2 jobs while I was at university. That well, you're digging deep in my brain here, my friend. 2 of the jobs. I miss my parents. I'm glad they're dead and not hearing this. The one was I worked for there was a private detective that recruited criminal justice students to work for him. Well, he wasn't 100% on the up and up, but I worked for the CIA. It was Confidential Investigation Agency. That's what he called it, Confidential CIA. Yeah. And it felt, very honestly, it was interesting. It felt a little creepy. I'll give you an example. I can remember sitting in a bar. I was watching somebody and listening to the conversation this guy was having with this woman. And it just felt, even though someone was paying for the work to be done, it just felt a bit uncomfortable. We also would go into homes and obviously with permission, and set up recorders on the telephone. Again, these were the old dial telephones and, landlines and record it. And the one time that we played the tape for a spouse, and the spouse was crying listening to it, it was just, although the spouse needed to know, I guess, desired to know, hired, it was just, it got to me. As I'm saying that, I can feel it. It was just difficult emotionally, certainly for the spouse, but just wasn't for me, the work. And
Wow.
he was a very odd individual. I won't mention his name. He's long deceased also. But if anyone remembers the Confidential Investigation Agency, yeah, very, very, very unusual guy. Then I got a job.
Well, Louie, I got to tell you, this conversation has already gone in directions I never ever would have guessed.
Tom Angleberger, you and I both. It's interesting about what's going on with my brain these days is my recall from years ago, decades ago, is sharp. Asked me something I did 15 minutes ago, and I'm like, what? So you're getting some things that I hadn't thought about in a long time. Then I got a job as a clerk at an adult bookstore.
Oh my God, Louie.
And it was
wait a minute, we've had sex, drugs, violence, and rock and roll already.
Yeah. And ended up being a manager, became manager. Well, it worked out that, it worked out with school because I was able to, I know it was a very unusual job.
Oh
yes.
my gosh.
Yeah. Tiger's bookstore up on Market Street here. Okay.
So some of your listeners are probably like, oh, I remember that place. But they hopefully don't say that out loud.
Old. They've got to be old. Yeah, that's actually, yes. They wouldn't say it out loud. Oh, I remember. I used to go in there. Oh, it was, and oh God, my mom stops by one day to bring food to me.
No.
Yes, and I've got to tell you, the counter had a lot of adult toys in there. And then what happens is my father blows up at me. Why did you let your mother come down to that? I didn't. She pops in. Yeah.
Louie, that's a scene out of a movie. That would make a great movie scene.
Yes.
And
well,
she's brought you like some egg salad sandwiches.
I don't remember what she brought, but it was like, oh gosh, she walks in the door and it's like, Mom, what are you doing here? I brought you some food. I made whatever.
Stars.
Oh God. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, this is fantastic stuff, Louie. I might write a novel about a Louie B. Private Eye who moonlights at the adult bookstore. Oh my gracious. This is wild stuff. So, somewhere along
move me along, Tom. Please.
How far have we gotten? Are you
Go ahead.
Are you 30 years old yet? Are you
no. Oh no. I don't know. Mid 20s.
Okay. Now, so up to the time that you came to and became a radio person, did you have anything else that you sort of had as a career that you thought, oh, this is my career, this is what I'll be doing?
I started a roller skating business where I sold skates, mostly outdoor skates. And originally outdoor, I had this idea. It's like, wow, everybody's going to be skating outdoor. I had a pair of outdoor skates, and this is good. Well, it was too soon. I had a blast with it, but it was too soon. And then years after I closed the business, it was like, now you kids are skating on the street. Now you're skating on the street. But it was called Roller Mania. And it was, yeah. And I kind of learned by doing. I ended up being able to, mount the plates on skates and take people that had, oh God, what were they? the ball bearing wheels and put the better or different wheels on them, different
So,
recall.
I, once again, I'm blown away. I never would have guessed you are must be a really good roller skater yourself.
Well, I love to skate outdoors. I wasn't like a fancy, but I would go there was like roads that were close in the park, and I've done some very stupid things in my life, Tom. Many of them. And one day I was skating. I mean, I would skate miles and miles, and absolutely loved it. And I thought once, well, let me pop on this freeway. I know. I was just going to go from one end to the next exit, which was maybe, God, I don't know, quarter mile, half mile. And of course, someone saw, and of course, it was, I didn't get arrested or anything, but it was not a good idea, because once I was on, it was one of those things. But I used to love to skate outdoors.
Wow.
Yeah. And we did skateboards, and yeah, it was fun.
You skateboarded too.
Well, I wasn't a good skateboarder. We built skateboards for people.
Man,
yeah,
you really were ahead of your time with that.
Yeah, and that's not a good business thing. I mean, it was fun. I had a blast. I met some really good people. I've got a dear friend today that I met through that store. Wow, back in 1970, I don't know, but late 70s, yeah. And
wow,
yeah.
Did you?
But I see these kids that like a year or two later, after all of us, then now you're skating, now you're doing it. So it was fun. Had good relationship with the roller rinks, but I was not. I loved to skate, and I could skate, endurance skate well, power skate well. But I wasn't like a fancy. I wasn't one of these people that are dancing and going backwards all the time. I could do it, back then, but not like people I see do it. Wasn't a fancy skater.
Wow, what another completely unexpected thing, but I'm not surprised, because the reason I wanted to ask these questions was you're just such a interesting person that I knew that you had this interesting and textured past.
I like how you say that, textured.
Yeah, it's textured.
I better go incognito.
But I do. So well, actually, now that you've got the bunny ears on, that reminds me, I've been meaning to find out when you met Bunny.
Oh,
or am I out? Is my chronology off here?
No. I knew her in high school. She was a year ahead of me.
Oh,
yeah. But we were friends. There was no relationship. I mean, friendship. We were same. What do I want to call it? Hippie cult, sort of. Not cult, but hippie sort of. There's a group that hung together, rejected by all others back then.
Yes.
And most of those folks had graduated year before me and moved on. And one night, I'm going to really get myself in trouble. So I had a girlfriend, and there was an all-night Mexican restaurant, and I don't know what time, 3 a.m, whatever. And we went there, and the waitress, now these were in my more motorcycle days. And
motorcycle?
Yeah.
What? I thought you were on roller skates.
Well, the roller skates were later. This was pre-roller skate.
Are we talking about like Marlon Brando here?
Well, no. They were tough guys. I liked to ride. My favorite was, I had an old Triumph chopper, chopper with a handlebar.
No way.
Yeah, I loved that. And went with this young lady to this Mexican place, and the waitress comes back and said, "There's somebody up front who thinks they know who you are, you're, et cetera, et cetera." And my response, again, when I say this, I kind of cringe, but I know I didn't say it mean or tough. But I said, "Why don't you ask whoever up front thinks they know who I am to come back and see if I am who they think I am, as opposed to giving my name and doing what, it was just, and I remember
Wait,
it was Bonnie that walked by.
so you're like, just to set the picture here before they come back to see you, are you like dressed like a biker? I mean, are you like scary
No,
looking?
not, oh no, scare. No, I don't, I think I'm scary looking now just because of the age and stuff. I know I am. I fear the mirror. I don't want to see this. I don't, but no, just maybe a little bit of an edge, but not impolite. I wasn't impolite. I wouldn't be, it was never that type of,
Okay.
that just doesn't, that's not me.
Okay. All right.
And it was Bunny coming back, and we knew each other. There was no relationship, and I know that the young lady that I was with was giving her bad looks, and she had said, we were friends. She was very nice to her. She said, she introduced herself, da, 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 and she said, back then we had phone books, and she said, "I'm in the book, we should get together, some whatever." And that was it. And if my recall is accurate, which these days I don't know, I think I called her the next day. Yeah, yeah. And that's how I met her. I mean, that's how
Wow.
we reconnected. That's how we reconnected.
Man. Did she
Yeah, yes.
did she join the biker gang with you, or
Well,
did she
I
leave the
was that
biker?
Baker gang. Well, actually, I was a member of a motorcycle club for a while called the Brothers of the Hammer.
The
Local.
Brothers of the Hammer.
Yeah. Yeah. I still have my colors.
I gotta write this down. Brothers of the
The
Hammer.
hammer. Yeah. And
Did you have the jackets? Did that?
yeah. I had the colors with the patch, and yeah. And had a lot of fun. Had a lot of fun with those guys. It was an interesting, when I think about it, it was I don't know what motorcycle clubs are like today. They're probably all interracial, et cetera. But back then it was one of the, I don't know, I shouldn't say one of the few. It was an interracial motorcycle club, primarily Black. And I was the last light-skinned, I'll say, member of the original Brothers of the Hammer. We had some fun.
Wow.
The cabarets, yeah. One of the things I remember about that is baking marijuana brownies, and we went to a cabaret, where there was other clubs, etc. In I can't remember where, it was a bit out of town, and when you would eat the brownie, and I would make the brownies very moist, yet a lot of marijuana in them. It's different than smoking it, because digesting it, you're getting the full effect. And I think we all just kind of sat at the table pretty stoned and tried to dance once in a while, but never brought brownies again to any event.
Wow.
Oof. Well, you're really getting some stuff.
All right. So,
I don't know if it's what you're looking for, but
this is fit. I couldn't have dreamed this up. Brothers of the Hammer, roller skating, taxis.
Oh, and I became the sergeant of arms in the Brothers of the Hammer.
Yeah.
It was odd because I was one of the smallest guys, probably the smallest guy at the time, in the club. and sergeant of arms has to protect the club, restore order if one of the members gets out. And I remember there was a guy and I had just become sergeant of arms, and there was one guy. I'll tell you, his street name was the Bruiser, and he was huge. And he was like out of line at a meeting and yelling at the president, and the president of the club says, "Sergeant at arms, Mr. And I'm thinking, okay, this is it for me. This is a see ya. And I remember, Tom, going up to him and just speaking with him, not, I wasn't gonna, there was physically, I wasn't gonna be able to restrain. At that time, I probably weighed maybe 130 pounds. He probably weighed at least twice that.
Oh my gosh.
5'7". He was 6. Yeah, it was just, there was, and nobody backed me up, by the way. I was sergeant at arms, so this is my deal. And spoke to him. And he was like, then he started to say, this is how a man should talk to a man. And I thought, wow. Good. I lived another day.
Oh my stars.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I had a lot a lot of really good guys.
Wow. That did raise another question though. If his name was the Bruiser, what was your street name?
I didn't have a street name. I never.
Oh,
None
you were
that I
just
can
Louie.
recall. I was Louie, or
Well, that actually raises the question, and we can pause it if it's messing up the chronology. But when did you become Louie B. Free?
when the gentleman that put me on radio
Oh, okay.
didn't, yeah, he, Louis Free is not my given name, not my legal name. And I forget how the B came in. It was Louis Free at first. Oh, you can't, and he, because I guess the hippie-esque thing, Louis Free, seemed to roll. So that was it. The B came in. Yeah.
Well,
It's a small B. It's not a capital B. I always say it's a small case B, because, and people say, well, what does it stand for? What does it stand for? It was like Louis B. Free. Okay. Well, then I called Boulevardier, the French term. Well, I'll say that sometimes, but it really doesn't. It's just Louis B. Free. Oh, and yeah.
So you picked that name right when you started at the radio station?
He picked it. He picked it.
Oh, he picked it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's perfect for you.
Yeah. It stuck.
Wow. So, well, I guess I'm ready to jump into the radio days if you are.
Please, let's jump out of there. That's so fast.
Okay. Well, so so you have this business idea, which we never figured out what that was.
No, I know
that might be for the best.
I reconnected with him not too long ago. I should ask him. I'm sure he doesn't remember. He wasn't interested.
So he says, why don't you become a talk show host?
You ever think of,
and 1 week later you're doing
a week or two. Yeah. Maybe 2 weeks max. Very quickly after that, I'm doing it.
Did somebody at least show you how to work the buttons?
Yeah, you showed me how to do the dials. Yeah. Yeah. But it was just, and then Bunny went with me to help, because I didn't know what I was doing, and she was there to help, and then, pick up the phone lines, put them through or whatever. And I remember people saying, who are you talking to? Because I'd be talking to her, and he said, my producer. And who's your producer? I called her the lovely Ms. Bunny Face. I'd call her Bunny Face. And we'll save that story for another time. But that's, and helped me, because I didn't know what I was doing. And I'll never forget, Tom, when my first caller one morning, and I've never screened the call, by the way. Got never. Yeah. And there's that's what would they call it? A double-edged sword. I mean, but I just didn't like the idea of knowing what someone's going to talk to, what the, and just pick up on air. And I remember one guy one morning, and I still have the recording, except if I play it, I don't know that you're going to be able to hear it through this system. And I remember because I played it, it's been the most requested liner for the show. Pick up, hi, you're on the air. Blah, blah, blah. He'd say, how dare you call the president and the first lady a couple of jerks in Washington, you long-haired, dope-using, maggot-infested, yellow-bellied coward. Why don't you get out of Young Center, get out of town? And he hung up. He's calling me a coward, by the way. And he blurted it and hung up. And my reaction was, what a great way to start the day. And I just kind of burst into laughter. How do you react to something like that? And more and more people would play that again, play that again, play that again. And what eventually happened is I connected with the guy. He called, I think he called Bun off air once to thank me for playing it. We ended up becoming kind of buddies because he would go to a bar. He was blind, and he would go to a bar where people hated me. I mean, he would go to a bar and there was a lot of people that didn't like, I never understood listening to a show that you don't like the host. I don't get that concept. And he became sort of a hero there because he told me off. So we ended up communicating. It was a nice guy. It was just odd.
Wow.
Sorry I went into all that, but it was odd.
That's so Louie to become friends with the heckler.
Well, it was just, it was interesting. It had some very trying. I had a situation at that station. Stop me if I'm going too far into this. Okay.
No, go right ahead.
Had one day there was a lady. I go out of the studio. I don't know how she got past the front desk or whatever. She's standing outside of the studio, and folks, I know this is politically, a little old lady, again, I was in my maybe mid 40s. She had to be in her 60s, maybe more towards my age now. And she said, I just wanted to come by and meet you, and da 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 da. So I brought her into the studio, let her look around, took her on a tour of the station, and gave her some what would you young people call it today, swag or whatever. And it was very nice. I get a letter, handwritten letter, some days later, and it starts off very nice. Thank you so much for taking the time, et cetera, et cetera. And then she says something about cutting my hands off, that she needs, it got really, really awful, threatening, like horrible. And interestingly enough, she had a return address on the envelope. So I didn't know how to, what do I do? I didn't want to make a police report. I didn't know, do I take it seriously? Not. Well, it was very graphic. And talked to some people that I know and found out that she had some mental health issues, and didn't think she would be a threat, that she had threatened other people, and never, at that point, had not gone through with any of it. But it was very, very unnerving at the time. It was just very, threatening people that I knew also. So
I bet.
Yeah.
Oh my stars.
Yeah. Talk about unexpected. It was like, that little old lady. Are you kidding? It was bizarre. Yeah.
Wow.
Early radio days.
Well, yeah. So one thing we skipped over was your first show. What was it really about? Was it supposed to be about politics or local stuff going on in the news? What was this? What were you supposed to be talking about?
News, local stuff, news, national stuff, politics, news. Trying to remember. It was just, back then I was very up. I was a voracious newspaper reader. I read numerous papers every day. I knew what was going on, and I had some insight into local political things because of some of the lifestyle I had lived prior. This was a very mob connected town. There was always a battle in this area, in the Youngstown area, between the Cleveland mob and the Pittsburgh mob, and there was a lot of murders. Actually, I had some gentleman on last week, and talking. There's a very popular podcast now about things in the valley that had, the mob stuff, and I knew some things that I probably shouldn't have talked about. But again, no filter between the brain and my mouth. And there was for example, there was a local, now deceased politician. He had been elected sheriff, and then he went to United States Congress. And I knew he was corrupt. I knew he was mob connected. And again, just blurted it out, talked about him. I got a call from, I think it was Nightline. Again, I'm home one night, and this is a wall phone corded landline, and it was Nightline. I can't remember how long I'd been in radio, certainly not long enough to be contacted by Nightline. And they said they were coming into town, they wanted to come to the studio, and they wanted to interview me, et cetera, et cetera. Well, I felt sure at the time it was a prank. I mean, come on, Nightline, right? Nightline's going to come to town and interview me. Okay. I said, oh yeah, okay. I said, just let me know how many of you there will be, because I want to make sure we have a catered lunch and the meet conference room, et cetera, et cetera. And he said, hey, I know you're serious. I'll see you then. And hung up. Got a call back, I think the next day, about them coming. And I said, come on, they said, this is Nightline, serious, check us out, called the number back, et cetera. It was actually Nightline. And again, as it created a lot of problems for me, because this individual was Jim Trafficant, Congressman Trafficant, Sheriff Trafficant. People loved him. Many people loved him in this area. And that my no filter, outspoken about him, caused a lot of grief. His lawyer ended up buying the station, and one of his lawyers, and I was out of a gig there, had another gig for a week, 5 days. And I was very cautious at this other station, and got locked out the following Monday morning. You're not taking Jim Trafficant and the mob on from my radio station. Well, I wasn't. I was very cautious. Went to another station, very good station, and did an expose with a reporter, and some local media came in and were filming about something he had done. I'm not going to go into detail. And the owner drove in from out of town to take my keys away after the cameras were gone and put me out. So the Warren newspaper, Warren's a city very close in the valley, did the Warren Tribune did an article, and they titled it "Nothing for Free," about because how I had, lost 3 radio jobs in course of 6. Now, I had been for years at the one station, and ended up up on Lake Erie in Ashtabula for 4 years. So I had to get up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the mornings to do a 90-minute drive so I could do the morning show.
Wow. Oh, you stayed living in Youngstown and would drive all the way to Ashtabula?
Yeah. Conneaut, Ohio, actually. It was right on Lake Erie. It was beautiful there.
Wow. But then eventually you were able to come back to Youngstown radio?
Yes, I did. I got recruited back. God, I remember there was a guy that I knew that and was part of a radio station in town. Actually, I think they had 3 radio stations, and asked me, why am I not in Youngstown? I said, because I got kicked out. My audience said I was in exiled to Ashtabula. This was the line they would use. And came back. Interesting. Wow, you're really getting me to remember, Tom Angleberger, a lot of things. They put me on it was all Spanish. One of their 3 stations was all Spanish. And I was the only non-Spanish, English host on. And initially, he wanted me in this group. There were no other openings at the time. They put me there to do a morning talk show, which understandably, again, I say this, upset an awful lot of their listeners, the Spanish listeners. I don't know what the proper term is. Spanish speaking listeners.
Were you speaking in Spanish?
No. I mean, I can swear a little bit. I can sing a little bit, some lines. I can, gosh, should I say score some drugs? No, I shouldn't say that. Delete that. But I don't speak, I don't speak Spanish.
So,
Poco, but poquito. But what happened was, and people were very, very upset. And I'll never forget, Tom. One day, a lady called and told me, I'm gonna get a little choked up, that because it was taking a lot of negative stuff, and she said, when you first came here, whatever, speaking, we just really disliked you and were angry, et cetera, et cetera. Now, having listened for whatever period of time, she said, we're glad you're there. I'm glad you're there. And people I know are glad you're there. And she had me in tears. And
wow.
Yeah. It was,
that's amazing,
interesting experience.
Only you could pull that off. That's such a
maybe, yeah, I don't know. Okay.
Wow. So I don't even know exactly what year we're up to, but how about the station that you're at now? How did you end up at that station?
Well, I moved around a bit. Boy, I'm trying to even remember. From that station, I went to the Youngstown Radio Group, which was an AM, I think AM, and 2 AMs and I think an FM, and it was an urban FM station, and it was the talk. There was urban talk and some Spanish shows, and I got to and the guys in the one Spanish show would refer to me as what was it? Loco. Blanquito Loco, crazy little white guy, I think is how they referred to me. God, who was the rapper that came once that did Soulja Boy? It was great. He had a crew. It was great because they came in and they reeked from marijuana coming out of their tour bus. And it was great. And they had a film crew. They were doing a documentary, and it was, I better stop dancing a bit with them, with doing the Soulja Boy dance. It's fun. Had a lot of fun. Wonderful, wonderful people, many of whom I'm still in touch with today. And then I went to another, just lots of stations, lots of moving around. It's oh yeah, I'll do that. That's always been my, oh yeah, kind of like switching majors in university. Yeah, I'll do that. Do that. Yeah. Well, that sounds intriguing. And got recruited from different stations. And it was interesting. Yeah. And now here I am in my twilight years.
Wow. Now, how long have you been at this station?
Actually, I left terrestrial radio a few years back with an opportunity to stream through a newspaper site, a newspaper that had published for 150 years, the Youngstown Vindicator. That's where my studio is today. And the Youngstown Vindicator ceased printing in August of 2019. And I'm still here. And the old not joke was, because I was never an employee of the newspaper, it was, they can't fire me, but they can put me out. And now the building that I'm in, Tom, was right outside. I guess I could flip the camera. I'm not sure exactly how to do that and take it off the screen, was the newsroom. And this building was buzzing with, I had a couple hundred people 24 hours a day. You know, the
Wow.
yeah, and it was, and now not. Now there's a few people in the building. I'm still here. And now we stream through WFMJ website, which is the TV station, which is same ownership as the Vindicator. And I'm glad to be here. Honored to be here. It was a whole different thing with the streaming, because I wasn't sure if that was for me, and it's worked out very well.
Wow. Well, it is, the neat thing about it is that I can tune in now and listen to you, whereas I could never have pulled in those Youngstown stations.
That's for sure. That's for sure. Can we pause for a second? I'm sorry.
Sure.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Wow, Louie, I was right to be curious. Your story is blowing my mind. It has been an incredible journey. I was writing down just modes of transportation. Big chopper, taxi, roller skates. You've done it all, Louie. I never could have predicted the working for the Private Eye, the Brothers of the Hammer. I never could have predicted it, but somehow it all fits. It's surprising, but not a surprise at the same time.
Tom, I've enjoyed this. Has been interesting for me to remember some of these things, and we'll do a part 2 soon.
Hey, maybe we could do a part 2. And until then, though, I think I just want to say, Louie, that all of these things, all these textures, all these different forces came together to create just an amazing radio show and an amazing radio host. And I'm glad I got to finally peek behind the curtain and see how it works. Thank you so much for answering my questions and taking me through all of that.
Thank you. This has
My
been,
mind is blown, Louie.
as is mine. Tom Angleberger, thank you. Hi to Cece Bell, your wonderful wife, for me, please. Thanks,
Awesome.
man. We'll do it again.
All right. Thanks, Louie. I'll see you next time.